Hi, everyone. My name is Darren Shaw, and thank you very much for spending some time with me today. This session is entitled The Digital Transformation of Supply Chain. To introduce myself, I am the Vice President of Marketing and the North America Cloud Business Leader, or SNP. I have spent 30 years in business, the majority of that taking global enterprises through digital transformation, which includes technology transformation as well as business process re-engineering. I have worked in multiple industries, including but not limited to aerospace, pharma and life sciences, retail, and consumer products. And I'll be taking you on this journey today. So without further ado, let's start. As I indicated, this is a session on the digital supply chain transformation. We're going to be talking about a few things here. We're not going to be doing a huge deep dive into the nuances of what defines supply chain, what defines digital transformation, because really supply chain in itself is broad. Digital transformation is certainly broad by how it's been defined, and I'll go through a bit of simplification on that topic. But I really want to talk about what is it that is possible with regard to supply chain transformation. But most importantly, what kind of gets overlooked and what people can actually get caught on is just what are those first few steps that you need to take before you start that transformation journey. Because a lot of times analysis paralysis is one of the biggest roadblocks to success in this area. To start with, let me give you a quick overview of my company, SNP. We have been in business for over 25 years. We are SAP focused, and we have done a number of projects in this SAP space, including but not limited to upgrades, rapid migrations to S/4HANA, moves to the cloud, whether it's a hyperscale cloud, private cloud, or hybrid environments. The consolidation and harmonization of systems or the carve out of said systems, data harmonization, and analytics and archiving. We have resources located all over the world, including the United States, that are ready to work for you when you're ready to start your project. And we focus on automation throughout our processes, all of our processes, from quality checking through testing and validation and the actual transformation itself, because quite simply, it mitigates risk. Whether you are a project-oriented industry like aerospace and defense, or typical repetitive manufacturing concern, it's all about mitigating risk. And particularly in these days of transformation and attempting to rapidly gain benefits, either from a business benefit perspective or TCO perspective, there's no tolerance for risk. And our automation focuses on mitigating that risk and providing guided steps to take you through your transformation journey. And one of the biggest things that we're known for is taking what historically was viewed as multiple disparate linear projects and consolidating them into one simple go live. What does that do? It rapidly reduces project time, reduces the cost of transformation, and again, mitigates risk. Please view our website, www.snpgroup.com, for more information. So let's start with some terminology, right? Trying to keep digital simple. I'm sure most of you, and even I am, are pretty sick of seeing digital tacked on to everything from transformation to digital supply chain to digital cars, digital can openers. Everything now has digital in front of it, and that can get a bit sickening. It also can be a bit deceiving as well, because digital transformation is applied as this broad umbrella without really understanding what it means. So let me just try to simplify it for you, at least how I view digital transformation and the context that we'll use in this presentation. So going digital, right, means maximizing the benefits of automation and the latest relevant technologies available to commercial businesses. So if you're using automation and the best technologies available, and you want that to help transform your business, therefore a digitally transformed company develops, delivers, and services their products for the modern customer. The modern customer being either B2B or B2C, a customer that thinks and acts with technology as a focal point of either the services they consume, what's in the products, how they buy them, how they service them, and how they communicate with you, the manufacturer or service provider. So it's adapting to what the customer wants. Number two, a digital company is operationally resilient, where that they can scale up and scale down no matter what economic conditions are out there. That is particularly important because if something happens within the marketplace and you have an opportunity that you cannot scale up to and your competitors can, that's money out of your pocket. A digital corporation empowers employees. It provides them with the data that they need at their fingertips when they need it to make decisions. If you want to pay someone, and by the way, people are a critical part of digital transformation, despite the typical thinking that it's really all about technology, it's actually about people. And you want to take repetitive, non-value add steps, automate them so that the people that you have in your organization can use their brains and use their time in the most effective manner. A digital company is interconnected and data-driven. There's a term out there called HIPPO, and that's used with regard to decision-making. And HIPPO stands for the highest paid person in the office, where people are making decisions by gut feel. But there are over 160 decision-regarded biases out there that can influence anyone's decision-making. But a true digital organization uses data, smart, proactive, predictive, deep data to make business decisions. And fifth, particularly with industries that are highly regulated, a digital company is always compliant, following the rules, filling out paperwork, all the mundane things that can cost you a lot of money for each infraction. Being always compliant, it's good business, it's required. Working with the government and other types of organizations like that, compliance is critical to doing business, period. And we talk about digital business. Let's be very clear on some terms here. Digital business transformation is the launching of new digital products and services and business models that leverage a digital platform or have significant advanced technologies embedded in those products and services. Digital business optimization is the overhaul and modernization of what you would typically call the back office or mid office applications, so that your business runs in the manner it needs to run to support the new digital business that you want to participate in. And then underlying that is digital technology enablement. So you hear about blockchain and you hear about AI and machine learning, cognitive learning by machines. Those are all the underlying technology components that can be used. You don't have to use all of them, but the technology enablement is the right application of available technologies in order to enable digital business transformation and the back office optimization that I spoke of. So with that in mind, and keeping those definitions clear, let's move on. So supply chain, let's get to supply chain. If we talk to people at McKinsey, they estimate that just within the aerospace and defense industry alone, there is $20 billion of EBITDA that could be unlocked by moving to digital. So just as a reference for you all, so in the 90s and early 2000s, it was finance that drove the implementation of SAP and Oracle and other ERP applications. It was all about finance. The CFO needed to have his or her numbers at their fingertips so that they knew where they were from a liquidity standpoint, receivables, everything finance. Every major implementation of an ERP application, it was finance first, and then typically was followed then by HR, and then supply chain, and then manufacturing dead last because no one had the stomach to go through a manufacturing or PLM type of transformation project because they didn't want to have the line stopped. They saw minimal risk in finance. Now, fast forward to 2022. Finance has pretty much done what it needs to do for now. But the problem is that finance only got so much wisdom from the fact that certain processes have been so-called digitized, right? Modernized, streamlined, nice and lean, provide them the information that they need. But if you haven't done the same thing to your procurement, supply chain, your services business, your manufacturing, there are financial insights that can be unlocked, but CFOs can't get to that yet. Why? Because they haven't been, again, sorry for the buzzword, haven't been digitized, have not been modernized. So the fact that the A&D industry can gain a lot through modernization. And if you look at procurement and supply chain and aftermarket services, right? And I include aftermarket services with this because aftermarket services is highly focused on an effective supply chain. Of that 20 billion, 12 billion of that is focused on procurement, supply chain, and aftermarket. So that is a huge component of this overall potential value that's at stake. So with that, showing the importance of it, we see, however, that there's a bit of a disconnect. So while A&D companies are being advised that, look, you've got a lot of value to unlock here in procurement, supply chain, and aftermarket, and also not to dispense with the other ones, R&D and support functions and manufacturing also have benefits, but it's very different in terms of what companies have started to actually focus on, right? So for example, within R&D, all right, there are companies out there that say that, we have implemented digital related or advanced analytics in, this first part here, R&D and engineering. 36% already feel that they have seen actual benefits. 41% are at what they call an early stage. 23% either have not started or really have no idea. And if you have no idea, that basically means you haven't started. But now when you go to the opposite end of that, right, if you look at, say, procurement and supply chain, only 16% of respondents said that they had actually implemented some sort of transformational project and are seeing benefits from that. All right, only 13% from aftermarket. Now, you see 49% in procurement and supply chain at an early stage and 39% for aftermarket. That might sound good early stage, but what early stage actually means in the context of the survey that McKinsey sent out is that they're really at an early stage with regard to a pilot or some sort of initial small project where they have not truly figured out what the actual benefits are. So early stage is not all that particularly good. Then you can see in aftermarket and procurement and supply chain, very large percentages of really not even starting yet. So the summary is in these two slides, lots of opportunity across the board within aerospace from digital transformation. Specific to our discussion about supply chain and thus related aftermarket, 12 billion of that 20 billion. Not a lot of work has actually been done, so there's really a gold mine out there. And here are the challenges. So why? So you're saying, okay, well, Darren, why hasn't this started yet? And some of these are going to be painfully obvious and recognizable to most of you because you deal with this stuff every day. Not all this, by the way, applies just to aerospace. These are typical hurdles that are being faced in any industry. Very demanding and unique customers. There's no one more challenging or demanding than the U.S. government and the DoD or the FAA, for example. You've got safety and performance requirements that go above and beyond any other product out there. Extended product life cycles, still highly manual processes, aged and highly customized systems, multiple disparate systems, right? For example, aerospace and defense over the past 30 years has grown by acquisition. SAP happens to be a very common application used in this industry. But what's happened is that there's been a lot of focus on integration of people, but not a lot of integration and consolidation with regard to the IT systems. So what you'll have is you'll have a large OEM that will be running 7, 8, or 9 production environments of SAP. What does that mean? That means 7, 8, 9 disparate, separate systems of the supply chain, aftermarket tools, procurement, finance. There's no way to enable data-driven decision-making when you have data in all different formats across multiple systems. So therein lies a lot of the challenges involved with actually doing the refinement and the consolidation and the lean and Six Sigma projects that could derive a lot of benefit for aerospace and defense companies. Now, this is a painfully visual slide, but I've shown this only to highlight the fact that when you talk about digital supply chain, there's not just 1, 2, 3, or even 4 items that you need to focus on, right? Inventory planning, supply planning, response planning alone, each of those subsections beneath could be a major project. Now, to tack on issues around network design, planning analytics, the actual technology and foundational components alone, all right, can be quite daunting. And the problem is that in a lot of cases, companies come to a grinding halt for 2 reasons. Number one, they try and boil the ocean and do all of this to try and tackle all of these boxes as one transformational project. And on the opposite end, they get way too myopic. All right, they want to focus on demand sensing, for example, when the underlying technology and foundational platform is a wreck, and integration aspects with, say, finance, with people systems, right? The number of people assigned to supply chain or the people on the shop floor. You can't enable demand sensing when the rest of your applications are a mess. Somewhere in between there, and this is where you need to speak with true supply chain experts, is what does the transformation roadmap look like? Because you can't do all this at once. You don't want to do all this at once because you'll never make it. It's far too complex. But there are companies out there that know supply chain in and out, every one of these boxes and even more that we don't even have in here, and can lay out that transformation journey and the implications along each of those steps. So again, so when you talk about digital supply chain transformation, well, the response should be when someone asks you about, what's your plan, the response is, which part? Because that will go into a very, very deep conversation in and of itself. And lastly, one of the big things to focus on, and again, not just the process part and the technology part and the integration part that I talked about there, but here is the biggest thing to think about. And people in my field in the technology space will often try and argue with me about people being the biggest and most important aspect of digital transformation. It is. And I'll tell you why, and I'll use an example. In fact, I won't tell you why. I'm going to give you an example of why. So take your legacy or your old school procurement specialist, right? He or she is part of the purchasing organization. They know their commodity or set of commodities that they oversee. They know them like the back of their hand, right? They are a commodity expert. They know what best practices is for unit costing, right? What the best price should be, what services, depending upon that commodity, what services should typically be thrown in as part of that unit cost. They are very good negotiators. Um, they understand vendor management practices. They understand vendor contracting with regard to procurement. And they are given bonuses at the end of the year for grinding down those unit costs, right? They want to reduce the overall cost, right? And they are also brought in to solve problems, right? When that product is not available or when the product comes in, it isn't what was expected, they hear the alarm bell and they get the proper units of whatever that they are overseeing where they need to be in the shape that they need to be in. All that is very, very valuable if you believe that purchasing is a standalone entity focused on cost. Now, look at digital transformation from a procurement standpoint. You are not part of the purchasing organization anymore. You are part of the product development team. You are not looking at the unit cost of just one particular item, one particular widget, one bolt, one nut, one cog, one set of electrical components, but you're looking at that unit in tandem with all of the other units and all the other materials that builds the end product. Because you are looking for the extended, longest life cycle of that product that's being built. You want to collaborate with your various suppliers, tier 1, tier 2, tier X, to make sure that you have a product that meets and exceeds customer expectations. All right. You want to use data to solve and predict potential problems in that product as it's designed for its use in the marketplace. And you want to be able to take data and then turn that back in. Okay, so what does that mean given these particular failure rates, given how it performs in the market? What can we do better? And how do we work with that vendor or with that supplier, with that business partner, actually more appropriate, to do it better? So you're not focusing on purchasing, but you're focusing on business acumen, right? You're not trying to grind down unit costs. It's the overall total cost to produce, which means not just the lower unit cost of the items in there, but the ease of production. And total cost also includes the ease of repair, all right? For those of you working in the engine industry, right, power by the hour, it's all about getting that engine in the air running as long as possible. That's how you get paid. Yes, there's always focusing on making sure that you're being cost conscious with regard to the various components that make up that engine. But unit cost is not the way to go. That's way too myopic. Okay. And also, you're not looking to IT to solve all of your problems from a support application perspective, right? Technology in the digital age has become democratized. What does that mean? That means that typically you as a finance person, a procurement person, a supply chain person, you know what cloud is. It's not some nebulous concept. You understand technology. You learned more in grade school than people 30 years ago learned in their entire lives, right? So you're savvy enough to understand how technology can improve processes, improve communication with your suppliers, right? That is a major mind shift. And not everyone in your current purchasing organization today will have the mind shift to change over into the digitized or modern, you might say, or future procurement specialist. Those are very distinct attitudes and approaches to doing your job. All right. A lot of the money that needs to be put into a digital transformation project is not just buying the software or enabling blockchain or AI using some analytics tool within the cloud. Do I have the right people? Where do I find the right people? And the folks that work with me now, can I convert them over into the type of person that we need, given a new mindset and given new digital tools to do their job? So think about that very carefully going forward. All right. So there's a discussion that anything regarding technology is a pure TCO play. All right. It's got to be to reduce my IT costs, and yes, that's a part of it. Okay. And this is where we get into the what does digital supply chain transformation look like? Okay. Let's start on the left-hand side. Remember I talked about all those disparate, lousy systems that a lot of major aerospace and defense OEMs have, and not just A&D, but a lot of manufacturers and industries that have grown by acquisition. Whether you're running SAP or you're running SAP and Oracle, you've got a bunch of systems that don't talk to each other, and your data is always suspect. So now you have an opportunity, using tools from SNP and others, to consolidate those SAP systems or consolidate those ERP systems into a nice, clean, new digital core. What is a digital core? It is the foundation upon which you're going to actually make the changes to your business and to your processes that's going to enable you to grow the bottom line and grow the top line. All right, it's important to do both. It's not just a cost takeout play, right? So you have your nice new clean system. You're running one system where all the data is in sync. Your processes talk to one another. It's not over customized. It doesn't take a bunch of people having to constantly bring the system back up after it crashes, after doing a bunch of batch jobs overnight. You have a nice clean system. And with that new clean system, makes it a lot easier for you to improve your processes, right? Try and improve supply chain planning over 9 different systems versus improving supply chain planning over one system. It's a lot easier, much higher chance of success. You now have accurate data, which gives you more accurate and predictive analytics and preventative data so that you can keep planes in the air, you can keep assets running as they need to run for the people that are using them and buying them. You're maximizing your operational resiliency. And you're adapting the new capabilities that the technology has to offer. Combine that with the power of the cloud, where you can truly integrate with your entire supply base, and you can make a true sense and response supply chain real versus just talking about it or dreaming about it. And the analytical power that is unmatched by anything that you're ever going to run in your own back office. That leads you to these and many other benefits that I couldn't quite honestly fit onto this one slide. Inventory costs, at least 30% lower inventory costs just by doing demand-driven MRP alone. 50% lower flight delays, right? And that's related to aftermarket, right? And being predictive in terms of the maintenance that you have to do, right? Planned maintenance versus unplanned maintenance. That's the big one, right? Unplanned maintenance. 100% compliance, lower procurement costs, faster design optimization. Again, right? We're not talking about just buying widgets, right? We're talking about design optimization, right? Long-term cost savings, full cost savings, not just for a unit that's part of an item, but the full item itself. And the design optimization, faster design optimization to include new technologies, new learnings from that product being used in the field. 25% lower material certification time, 8 times lower testing time, 30% increased service levels. Those are the benefits of a true digital supply chain and digital aftermarket. All right, those are the savings. It's not just the savings of, well, I'm running a bunch of SAP systems in my own data center, and now I'm going to save some money by putting them into the cloud. That's a nice TCO play. But if you think about, the industry, the broad global A&D industry, but even your own company, particularly if you work for a large company, look at some of these savings numbers and do the math, and you're talking significant savings year over year over year. Okay, here's the problem. All right, all that sounds great, but you're not going to get that if you're getting roadblocks such as the following. Well, we have too many SAP systems. They're all too customized. We don't understand what the business case is, or we think the business case is much too myopic and it's only focusing on the technology business case, right? On-premises versus cloud. Nephophobia, which is a term in the psychiatry industry that refers to fear of cloud. I use it here in this example because there's still a fear of doing business in the cloud. For example, security is still raised as the #1 concern about moving business applications to the cloud. Meanwhile, without a doubt, Microsoft, Amazon, and Google have better security mechanisms in place than anybody else. Google has not been hacked yet. The NSA has been hacked. So keep that in mind when you think about the security issue around cloud. You haven't archived any data. We don't have that digital clean core. We can't do anything substantial because we're afraid of business downtime. We don't want to disrupt the business. We don't have the people that can do perform digital transformation, really understand it. My consulting company is telling me that I have to essentially implement everything all over again if I want to get to that digital core. Or I've been looking at this for about a year and I still can't make up my mind what I want to do first, right? All that happens day to day. We see that day to day today. And these used to be legitimate excuses. But the technology that SNP has, for example, can take all of these and remove them as the standard roadblocks to giving those in the supply chain profession and the supply chain departments what they need to truly transform. And here's an example, right? With SAP in particular, the latest and greatest cloud-ready version is S/4HANA. And I can't tell you how many companies are waiting until SAP stops supporting the latest version, which is ECC. And right now, I think that might be 2027 or 2028. The date has changed multiple times. It'll probably change again. So you can, if you're in the IT organization, you can say, well, we're not going to move to our digital core. We're not going to do anything until 2027. And you can certainly wait. Meanwhile, those of you who saw, there's a great movie, There Will Be Blood, Daniel Day-Lewis, and there's a great line saying, I drink your milkshake, right? So your digital competitors who have digitally minded employees and who knows that the business value is not just about moving from ECC SAP to S/4HANA SAP. And it's not just about moving from on-premises to the cloud, but the business case is the benefits like you saw in digital supply chain transformation, digital MRO, digital procurement, digital finance, digital HR. That's the business case. So if you're waiting for some arbitrary date to move to your digital core in 2027, 2028, you can do that. Meanwhile, your milkshake is being drank by your competitors. But luckily, as I said, technology has been democratized, so you in supply chain, more so than your peers in prior decades, you know what needs to be done, and you can provide insights and opinions and ideas to your brethren in the IT department. All right, tell them what you need, because if you don't move to that digital core and you can't get to the cloud, all those benefits I showed you on the prior slide are not going to happen, unfortunately. Because if they could have happened, they would have happened by now, right? So here's a quick example. Okay, have you worked in this industry before? Yes, we have. S&P has worked with a number of aerospace and defense companies, one of them being Airbus. So Airbus commercial aircraft, with our help, they did exactly what I talked about, right? They consolidated 5 of their SAP systems into one. They migrated onto a central finance system, and that central system is also poised for them to do further digital transformation work in other areas down the line. They implemented the new general ledger, which is a requirement to move to S/4HANA. They reduced the size of their data footprint by 50% because they had a lot of unused data elements in those various systems. And they also allocated data to the right locations for actual, day-to-day use. obviously recent transactions, versus historical data that they could draw upon but stored in a much more cost-effective location. They improve system speed and data-driven decision-making, highly important. They minimize technical downtime. All right, we have the ability to look at every single table within SAP and calculate what data can be moved in the uptime and what has to be moved in downtime, but that downtime data amount is reduced to a minimum. So whereas normally you would have to have a downtime of well over a weekend, we're able to do it within hours. And all of those steps done within one go live at half the time initially planned and about half the cost as well. So it is possible. It is very, very possible to do all this. And all you have to do is just ask. Ask us about how we can do it. For those of you watching this presentation, I've come to the end of it. And I have an offer for you. I have an offer of a free system scan of your SAP system. Why am we offering this? Because one of the first steps towards transformation is actually knowing what's underneath the hood. All right, what's underneath the hood of your car? What are you actually running? What does your data look like? Who is using what data and when? How customized are your processes? How many interfaces do you have? There are loads of data that companies simply do not know, and it's not surprising. So by offering you this free scan, which normally be $20,000 or more, you will know what data is generated by each organization, by location, by year. You will know the pre-projects that will be required if you want to move to S/4HANA, right? Your new digital core. We can tell you how far away your processes are from SAP's recommended best practices, the state of those customizations, and also how many of those customizations are you actually using. You'll be surprised. We can analyze the size of your SAP database and tell you how much of that is current data, say current and even maybe prior fiscal year versus data from 30, 40 years ago. We can calculate the amount of data associated with unused organizational elements, right? So the stuff that you don't need to bring over to your new clean core. And it provides you the opportunity for us to help you right-size your future cloud environment. Because so often the savings are lost on day one because for a lift and shift or a rehost, companies will often tend to move the current size of their databases and say, well, obviously, I need the same amount within Azure or AWS or Google or wherever I'm moving it to. We can help you right size to get the business savings just from the technology aspect alone. And we can do all of that within advance of that migration. So we offer this to you so long as you sat through this presentation and you provide a business email address, or you stop by our booth at PB Expo this year, booth number 646. And we can start you on that journey to a digitized supply chain. And more importantly, let's get you through those basic hurdles. Let's get you to that step 0 so that you can do all the things that you want to do. So with that, again, I'm Darren Shaw. Thank you very, very much for your attention. And I hope we can be of help to you in the future. Have a great day.